Welcome back to another episode of the Hardcore Casual with your boy, Bass the Kid. As always, like and subscribe, all that good stuff you guys should know by now. Any new subscribers, thank you very much for joining the channel. Make sure you like the content. If you don't like the content, please leave your comments, let me know why, see what I can help improve for your experience. Before we get into it, I just want to give a very big shout out to Danny Glover from Fight Fan TV and Karma Serene for the very generous super chats that they gave to me for the 200th episode that came out last week Thursday. So yeah, big thank you to you. I think also someone else dropped a super chat and I missed it on the live stream. I think it might be Jonah31. If it wasn't Jonah and it was you, please leave a comment down below so that I can give you your plaudits in the live that I do over the weekend. There will be a Day of Reckoning live stream happening on Saturday, 23rd of December. It's currently set for 7:45, but it might go 7:30, might go 7, might go 8, just depends. There's 3 specific fights that I have to cover, but there's a couple others that if they're on, I might just, switch on the camera and do what we do. So yeah, now look, this week is obviously dominated by all of the events taking place over in Saudi Arabia. However, there has been a few things that have taken place over the last couple of days that I want to address outside of that before I get to my coverage of that event taking place from tomorrow onwards. So with that being said, let's get into it. So as I'm sure most of you must be aware by now, Alycia Baumgardner and Claressa Shields have been going back and forth on X for the last 4 days. I think they've kind of maybe dialed it down a bit now, but yeah, definitely since sort of Saturday, Sunday time onwards, whereby Alicia's basically said, well look, I want to fight you. I mean, she said this a couple of weeks back, and I guess Claressa thought she was having a laugh, but Alicia's like, no, I'm being serious, like, let's fight. Let's do a catch weight, 147, I'll come up from 130, you come down from 160, 154, and let's make it happen. Now, as a result of this, Claressa Shields has become very catty, I would say. Now obviously both of them there was a bit of a jovial back and forth to start off with, but it seems to have devolved into a bit more of a spitefulness, especially bearing in mind that nothing's been signed yet. And Alicia's basically come out and said, well look, what is wrong with a competitor in a sport like challenging another competitor in a sport, for both of them to get to the money, basically. Now, why would you have an issue with that unless you already had an issue with me? Now, with this situation, those of you who may not know, like, there was a time where Claressa Shields actually came out and was very vocal at her displeasure at the fact of Alycia Baumgardner had basically critiqued her lack of power and the fact of why she's not getting knockouts. She had I think it might have been on DAZN or one of those platforms whereby she just basically gave her opinion. It might have also been on Twitter when it was Twitter back in the day. Claressa wasn't happy about that. Claressa also was very much friends with Michaela Mayer, and then as soon as Alycia Baumgardner beat Michaela Mayer, then Claressa became sort of very pally with her. But now this has sort of happened. It's almost like, oh, so were you actually really checking for me? Or were you still holding that residual anger and animosity that you had before? And now yet again, like they say, the mask has slipped. I don't know. Funny enough, it kind of reminds me of a situation that happened to me one time with someone on Facebook who I'd met them from outside that area, but ultimately we was really cool in there. But then it's like, after a while, I guess they didn't like the way that certain people would take to me or certain things that I did, and lo and behold, they just became more bitter, more nasty, more malicious, and would start sort of just doing certain things. It's like, well, why are you why are you doing this? Like, there's no reason for us to have these kind of situations. And it really got to a point where, like, you know, luckily there was no hands thrown. I mean, that still could be the case if, you know, I see them, but that's a whole nother story. But it's like, yeah, you know, I thought everything was cool, but clearly some way, somehow they held a different level of feelings towards me, and all it took was one, I guess, spark of them not liking something that I had done, which basically made their true colors come out. So it would be interesting to find out sort of how this plays out. Alicia's already shut down the whole narrative of no, don't try and say this is going to be anything to do with looks or whatever, because she's like, you know, my looks don't win fights, my fists do. And she put out there before anyone had a chance to talk about, you know, pretty privilege or light skin advantage or you know, sort of any type of, if anything like that. She just basically squashed all those narratives to start off with before we even got to there. So I'll be interested to see how it basically plans out, and I do want to kind of see what happens there. The fight, to be honest, will never happen, especially not at 147. The lowest I could see Claressa Shields going for that fight would be 150. I can't see her really going down to 147, and I can't see Alycia going up to 150 either. But stranger things have happened. She has competed at 140 before, so I guess adding an extra 7 to 10 pounds wouldn't be the worst of cases if she even decided to go to the full weight. But yeah, that's what's kind of been happening between them two. Leave your opinions down below, let me know kind of what you think. I guess kind of segueing out of that in a more roundabout way, and I guess this slightly ties to Alycia because it's a former opponent of hers, Terry Harper. So Terry Harper and Natasha Jonas has had a very interesting exchange of words that took place yesterday on X, whereby they was at, I think, the BBC Sports Awards, and for some reason the two of them got placed like sitting side by side, and Terry Harper puts out this little clip on X. I don't know if she took it specifically or the person next to her took it, because it's hard to see from the way the arm was shaped. But basically, she just basically said, oh, you know, someone at the Sport Awards must be having a bit of a laugh because, you know, have a look at who they've sat me next to. And she said, brilliant, that's 2 hours of silence, you know, 2 hours of sitting in silence. Now, Natasha Jonas has seen it and has clapped back, said, oh, you do have a lot less to say when it's face to face. So Terry has then sort of come back and said, well, you know, I tried to speak to you prior to the event, and your very cold one-word answers told me, set the tone exactly for how this was going to be, so there was no point trying to speak. And, you know, Natasha came back and said, well, yeah, sorry, I can't be two-faced. I guess that's maybe the difference in the generations. So I thought, okay, this is getting interesting now. And then also Terry was like, well, look, I was really just trying to get a selfie with you prior to that, but you didn't want to know. So, of course, I'm not really going to say anything to you. And the two of them just kind of going back and forth from that. Now, look, it's funny, and it's, again, someone probably was having a bit of a laugh, but maybe it was just negligence also on the behalf of the you know, of the planners and the seating or organizers. What I would say though with regards to that is it's funny because the two of them are never going to see each other again in the ring, so they're never going to settle the beef that they've got. It's always going to be an outside of the ring type situation. So even the whole chirping back and forth is like, it's, while yeah, it's funny, it doesn't ultimately lead to anything, so it feels a bit pointless. That being said, I did look at it, I did enjoy it, I did laugh. Now I'm actually followed by both girls, which is or both women I should say, which is a bit of a privilege, so I do get to obviously have a little bit of access to both of them. I've messaged both privately, not to do with this situation, but you know, before, and you know, I've had little dialogues here and there. Obviously, as you guys will know, I've interviewed Natasha a couple times, once on the breakdown, it was like about an hour long. We spoke to her, myself and Tony, which was a privilege, and she really delved deep into sort of her past. There was a lot of things that I didn't actually know. So and then I also interviewed her when the Michaela Mayer fight was announced. It was a very short one, but yeah, still very potent. And I've always got a lot of love for Natasha. Everyone knows I have a lot of love and affinity for her and her journey. I like Terry Harper's skills, but I don't have as much of a personal or a personal interest in her in that sense. But I would like to see the two of them squash this some way, shape or form, whether it's in the ring, whether it's outside the ring. Like, there's no real reason to be holding and harboring the feelings, because that just stops the money. So both of them get to the bag. That's how I see it. Now, yesterday or Monday, I think it was yesterday, Charlo was arrested. I don't know the full details, but apparently it's something to do with assaulting a member of his family. I'm assuming one of his cousins. So I'm assuming clearly they had a fight of some note, but with him being a boxer, I'm sure his hands will be registered as weapons. So if he has a fight, it's a lot more egregious than just a regular civilian on the street having a fight. Yeah, so it's almost like assault with a deadly weapon. Those are the kind of charges you can sort of get, you know, put on you. Now, I don't know the whole situation. I don't know what's happened, what the bond is, if there's a bail or anything. All I know is he was arrested for assault. Yeah, I don't feel like he's taken the whole Canelo thing very well. Obviously, a lot of people have questioned his heart, the fact that he ran for the majority of the fight, you know, he barely tried to win, if at all, maybe a fleeting moment here or there. But yeah, but just on his bike, just made a very boring, negative fight. And no doubt, I'm sure that family members and the general public are probably still getting onto him, or look at that poor performance. You didn't go out like a warrior. You're supposed to be a lion, but you ran all the time, blah blah blah. Maybe him and his cousin were having a back and forth, and his cousin brought that up, and that was just a sore spot for him. He's like, oh, and then he just snapped. I don't know the details, but all I know is he was arrested. I don't know if he's been bailed or anything yet. If anyone does know any further information, please put that in the comments. But not a great situation. Both him and Jamal are, I guess, going through different trials and tribulations at the moment. So I guess we just got to see how they both maneuver with that moving forward. So Bob Arum has come out and essentially said that Teofimo Lopez, Vasily Lomachenko and Shakur Stevenson all beat Gervonta Tank Davis. Now, he said, look, I just truly believe all of them have got the beating of him. He doesn't necessarily want to take these fights because he knows that, you know, that's the situation and that's what will happen. Look, long story short, I'm not sure if I would give all of them the chance. I would definitely do believe that Shakur beats him 100%. Teofimo is a bit more of a 50-50, but I do think Teofimo has the skills, but let's be honest, he's also up at a higher weight. So I guess it's a little bit of a pointless endeavor to talk about Teo, because he's at 140 and there's no way that he's going to do the catch weight or the rehydration or whatever. So let's look at more Lomachenko and Shakur. Now Shakur, 100%, I've always believed that Shakur will beat him, because Shakur is not going to give him the opportunities that he wants to land counter shots. Like Shakur, he also likes to be a counter puncher, and he's going to stay within his own range. He's not going to, you know, open up and allow Gervonta Davis to be able to go in between the shots to land his. So Shakur, I think, would quite easily beat him. The Lomachenko one now is a lot different to before. Whereas before, I definitely think Lomachenko would have had his number. Now, when Lomachenko, he's slowed down a little bit, he does like to take certain breaks, but because he is such a front foot pressure fighter, he's gonna be in range. Even if it's ambushing, at some point he's gonna be within range to get caught with a counter. Now, whether or not that counter does a huge amount of damage, not sure. And obviously he is smart enough to be able to work around the target and to cut those certain angles, so it would be a very competitive match. But in this instance of Lomachenko, I do actually think that Shakur would beat him. I mean, not Shakur, sorry, Tank. So of the three, I said I'm disqualifying Tiafimo because he's just too big. But of the other two, I definitely think Shakur Stevenson beats him, and I think that's a very easy fight for Shakur, quite frankly. And Lomachenko, I think that would be a very hard fight for both guys, but I do think that Tank does have the beating of that one. So that's my opinion, me being as objective as I can on the situation. Let me know what you guys think down below, and yeah, let's leave it there. And last but not least on this one, so Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia have both confirmed on X that they have spoken to their representatives to get a fight made between the two of them for next year. Now, personally, I do think that the two of them will fight next year. I actually do. But whereas Ryan Garcia initially said on X, well, let me get this belt off of Rolly, and then me and you can do the unification. And I remember Devin clapped back saying, well, hold on, I thought you said the belts don't matter. Let's do it next. And from what Ryan has said, it now maybe looks like he might be interested in that because they are making the negotiations. But that being said, a lot of these quote unquote the big fights, the mega fights, the unifications, they seem to take a long time to come together. So I wouldn't be surprised if he says, okay, let's sort this out, but when time starts to basically tick away and it's getting longer and longer, you will then ultimately see Ryan Garcia go into that Rolly Romero fight, or Ishmael Barroso, or O'Hara Davis, whoever it may end up being. I reckon it probably will be the Rolly fight though, because he does still hold the WBA title. And then the negotiations work out in such a way that both him and Devin Haney get to meet each other sort of around about, I'd say, June or July of this year. If not, then maybe October. But yeah, ultimately I do think the two of them will fight each other this year, but I don't really see it being next. I don't see it being in the first quarter, and I don't even see it being in the second. As I said, at best I think it would be in the third or the fourth. That's kind of where I predict, and that ultimately I think both guys will end up having to take other fights in the interim. You'll probably get Devin testing the waters at 147, but capturing that WBC interim title up there with Mario Barrios. So that way, even if he does come back down to 140 to fight Ryan or whatever, he's immediately the 147 champ should Terence Crawford vacate that belt. And if he doesn't vacate it, then he's just in prime position to be in the position to, you know, fight for that belt as and when either Crawford moves up to 154 or the belt ultimately does get relinquished a couple of years down the line. So he might go up and get that position for the 147 belt and then come down and compete at 140 until such a time as the belt becomes vacant, and then either choose to be elevated to full champ or to fight, I guess, the next highest contender for the title at the time. That's kind of how I see it going, and I reckon both of those fights would likely take place in and around March, April time. And then yeah, you would get the big fight between the two of those guys later on, either in the like I said, the late summer or sort of the early autumn, or the mid autumn time. And I think ultimately it doesn't sound like a bad strategy. I'd like to see both of them more active next year, if I'm honest. I'd like to see Devin out 3 times if possible. He's 25. There's no reason for him not to be able to get out a good 3 times. I know he makes a lot of money. That might be a challenge, but if they're 3 higher enough profile fights, the money will be there. And the same for Ryan. There's no reason for them to only be 2-a-year fighters at this point. Get out 3 times, I mean 4 times if possible. That really make that bank and cement your legacies from now. But yeah, I mean, look, if Ryan, the fact that he has actually said, look, he's put his team in contact to try and make that happen, while I don't think he's ready for that as yet, which is probably why I don't think it's going to happen straight away, I respect the fact that he is willing to try and make fights now. I guess maybe he realized from before, you know, ducking certain people or trying to just go certain routes wasn't, you know, ultimately wasn't doing him anything. He just needs to see where he gets to, and if for nothing else, maybe he realizes that he's not ever going to be what he thought he was. So now's just the time to make as many big fights as he can so he can cash out early. If that's the case, I respect that as well. Like, ultimately it is what it is, and everyone's got to get to the bag sooner or later. But anyway, I'm gonna leave it right there. That's me for this episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed. All of my coverage for Day of Reckoning will start from tomorrow. There will be 2 separate basis picks. There's going to be 4 on either side of that, plus there might be some other little bits and pieces. Let's see how I feel, and let's see if you guys are responsive to it. But for right now, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share if you are new, and that is the Hardcore Casual out.